Kate, I believe we are ready to start.
All right then. Okay, we're going to move into this non-Amazon related for the moment agenda that we have this evening. And so Darlene, do you want to start with the roll call? That'd be great.
Yes. Belvedere. Here. Benicia.
Here.
Concord.
Here.
Contra Costa County. Corte Madera.
Here.
Danville. El Cerrito.
Here.
Fairfax.
Here.
Lafayette.
Here.
Larkspur.
Here.
County of Marin.
Here.
Martinez. Moraga. Napa and all 5 Napa cities. Novato.
Here.
Oakley.
Here.
Pinole.
Here.
Pittsburgh.
Here.
Pleasant Hill.
Here.
Richmond.
Here.
Ross.
Here.
San Anselmo.
Here.
San Pablo.
Here.
San Rafael.
Here.
San Ramon.
Here.
Sausalito. And Mill
Here.
Valley.
Here.
Solano County. Tiburon.
Here.
Thank you, Holly.
Here.
Vallejo. I just saw her. Vallejo. Walnut Creek. We have a quorum.
Super. Great. Welcome, everyone. We've got a good house full of folks here tonight. Any board announcements? No. Hearing
Yes.
none.
Yes.
Yes, David.
Yes. This is a heads up. First of all, this is David Kuhnhart from Corte Madera. This is a heads up of something that I have been discussing with Don Weiss and some others that is coming the way of the executive committee in the first week of December. And that is a request that the executive committee prepare a letter for our respective members of Congress and our 2 senators supporting the concept of a carbon fee and dividend. This comes at this time because of the what we've experienced this year, and because the elections are now over and have demonstrated that what we really need to do is start listening, because we're going to have if not a stymied, we're going to have at least a balanced national government and not a single direction, not ability to flow easily. In September, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission issued a report called Managing Climate Risk in the U.S. Financial System, and their prime conclusion, their first #1 finding, was financial markets will only be able to channel resources efficiently to activities that reduce greenhouse gas emissions if an economy-wide price on carbon is in place at a level that reflects the true social cost of those emissions. I prepared a set of explanations of the nature of this policy. There are examples of it that are in the works in the House and the Senate this year, but of course, at the end of the 116th Congress, all of those examples will be scraped off the board and we'll start anew in the new year. You may have heard of the House report on of the committee on the select committee on the climate crisis, and they have a dozen different sets of actions to take. Number 4 of those pillars of action is putting a price on carbon. So this is not new. There are a number of local folks who have supported it in the state and in Marin and Sonoma County and elsewhere, and Santa Rosa and San Mateo and so forth. 2 of the 4 members of Congress who represent districts that MCE is in are co-sponsors of an example of this carbon fee and dividend plan. So it's coming your way. I would urge you to have a look at the memo and maybe chase down some of the hyperlinks that are incorporated within that. I would be delighted to take any questions, and it will be discussed in the executive committee on December 5th if the board and the executive committee agree.
Great. Super. Thank you, David.
Wow.
Any other board announcements?
I had one. This is Katie Meisner. I'm sorry. I just wanted to let you guys know I'm new from Vallejo, and I got frozen up when the roll call was called, so I didn't respond.
That's okay. I have you,
Right.
Katie.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Glad to be here.
All right. Anything else? Amy, were you going to say something?
Oh, no, I just thought that carbon fee and dividend piece is going to be very cool. So I'm
Okay,
excited.
don't egg him on right now. We're going to talk
Oh,
about
oh.
that in the executive committee.
Okay, I'll put myself on mute. I won't get too excited.
Amy, I'll send you a communication, Amy.
I would love that.
Okay, all right. Any other board announcements? All right.
Yes,
hearing
this
none-
is
Oh,
Sue from
Hey,
Oakley.
Sue. Hi.
Hi, this will be my last meeting. We had our elections and I'm still on the council, but they feel there should be a rotation. I've been with the MCE board now since Oakley started, and we're gonna have a new voice for Oakley. It'll be Aaron Meadows. And so he'll join you next meeting.
Uh-oh. Well, we'll miss you, Sue. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I
But
really
glad
learned
you're
a
still
lot
on
and
the
I really
council.
enjoyed this.
Yeah, good. Right.
Well,
Thank
Kate,
you.
Thanks, Sue.
this is Andrew. Can I make a similar announcement?
You sure can.
Okay, so this is Andrew McCullough from the city of San Rafael. I've had the pleasure of serving on the MCE board since I believe 2014 when I succeeded Damon Connolly, who was elected to the Board of Supervisors. It's been a pleasure to have served this long, but I am leaving because I'm leaving my city council. I didn't stand for re-election. And so my term comes to an end on December, well, whatever that date is in December when the election's certified. So I just want to say thanks to everyone for making my time on the board so pleasurable. Thanks to Dawn and her excellent staff for the work that they've done. And I'm looking forward to great things by MCE going forward.
And we'll say some nice things about you towards the end of the agenda, Andrew. So no sneaking out early.
No sneaking out. That's a deal. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other board announcements? All right. Hearing none, seeing none. Dawn, report from our Chief Executive Officer. Good evening.
Great. Good evening. Thank you. We have a lot to cover tonight, so I'm going to keep this short and sweet. I wanted to offer a very warm welcome to our newest board member who just spoke up from the city of Vallejo. Katie Meisner and her alternate Pipe and Do have officially joined, and we had an orientation actually just last week. So we're really excited to welcome her to the board. And then next, I wanted to let folks know that we are going to be holding a virtual holiday party on Thursday, December 17th. This was a great idea that our chair and vice chair brought up about a week ago. And we're excited to put this together. I know other folks are doing this with their own councils, and it'll give us a chance to kind of say farewell to the year in a less formal way. So more information to come. Time is still to be determined, but it will probably be around the time of our board meeting. Since you all might have that on your calendar, we probably won't need a formal board meeting. So save that date and be on the lookout for more details. And that's it for my report.
Great. Thanks, Dawn. Yeah, Tom Budd and I thought that a few virtual cocktails would be the appropriate way to end up this year and start the new year. So looking forward to that, Dawn. Thank you for getting on
Absolutely.
board with that idea.
Absolutely.
All right. Any questions or comments on Dawn's report? Alrighty. Okay. Did I jump right over public open time? I think I did. Is there any member from the public who wanted to say something, comment on items not on our agenda for this evening? All right. I'm not getting a sense. Oh, Chris Yalanis, yes. Darlene, can you see Chris?
I wonder if we need
He
to
raised his
unmute
hand.
Chris.
He did raise his hand and acknowledge.
He's muted.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I
Yep.
can hear you. We can hear you now, Chris.
Thank you. Supervisor Sears, I wasn't sure if you were taking public comments on items in the consent calendar.
We can do that now if you like, because that is the next item on our agenda. So that would be fine.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I was in the right place. Hello, members of the MCE board. You're my favorite board in all of Marin. I've been here 40 years and active in climate policy and all for about 10 or 15. And I love what you all do. Thank you for your leadership. I'm here to represent the Marin Climate Action Network, which is a group of troublemakers in the climate mitigation and adaptation area. And this group sort of came up with the idea of Drawdown Marin based on Paul Hawkins' work 4 or 5 years ago. And just wanted to speak in support of the response letter to the grand jury's report on climate adaptation. And I know that's a big chunk of your packet this month. One of the recommendations coming out of that response letter is to support the creation of a multi-jurisdictional task force charged with developing a single comprehensive multi-jurisdictional adaptation strategy for all of Marin. We support that, support the board in going forward with that, as well as continuing to address and execute climate change mitigation. So the grand jury focuses quite a bit on adaptation. And of course, we need a lot of work yet to be done on mitigation. So just wanted to encourage MCE to continue its excellent work in moving the needle around mitigation, especially for support for Drawdown Marin. And I know that MCE staff especially has been really active in the collaboratives on Drawdown and in policy and strategy. And we really appreciate that. And look for continued support of Drawdown. The second recommendation that came out of the response letter is to support the Marin Climate and Energy Partnership, broadening the partnership's mission, increasing its funding as necessary. So we would also support that recommendation. That's been a great multi-jurisdictional partnership, a great performance metric mechanism, and a good way to coordinate all these efforts that we're trying to partake. So thanks again, and that's it for my comments. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Chris. Is there anyone else here from the public who would like to comment on items not on our agenda or on the consent calendar, since I opened that door? Okay, I'm not seeing.
None are shown.
I don't see anyone. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so let's move on to item 5, which is our consent calendar. There are 5 items on the consent calendar. Do any board members have any item on that calendar they'd like to discuss? Okay, seeing none, would someone like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Move to
Move
adopt
approval.
the consent calendar.
Green,
second. Eddie Bursan.
thank you.
Super. All right, Darlene.
Belvedere,
Yes.
Benicia,
Yes.
Concord,
Yes.
Contra Costa County, Corte Madera,
Yes.
Danville, El Cerrito,
Yes.
Fairfax,
Yes.
Lafayette,
Yes.
Larkspur, Kevin, County of Marin,
Yes.
Martinez, Moraga, County of Napa,
Yes.
Novato,
Yes.
Oakley,
Yes.
Pinole,
Yes.
Pittsburgh,
Yes.
Pleasant Hill,
Yes.
Richmond,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
San Anselmo,
Yes.
San Pablo,
Yes.
San Rafael,
Yes.
San Ramon,
Yes.
Sausalito and Mill Valley,
Yes.
County of Solano, Tiburon,
Yes.
Vallejo,
I just need to abstain from C1 and C2 since I wasn't part of those meetings, and then yes on the others. Thank you.
thank you. Walnut Creek. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. Next on our agenda, item 6 is the CCA Joint Powers Authority issue. Vicken, are you taking the lead on this, or Dawn? Or?
I think.
I'd love to say a few words, and then
Okay.
yeah, Vic and Mike also are going to have some comments. I just wanted to say that we're really excited to be bringing this idea forward, and I have to give Director Butt credit because he's been talking about this for years. So very exciting. And with that, I'll turn it over in case Vicken has any introductory comments. We're going to mainly be hearing from Mike on this item, who's been leading the charge and bringing this into its final state. Vicken, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, Mike can go for it.
All righty, Mike, it's all yours.
Hey, thank you. And I think there's a slide deck to go along with this. So what we're talking about today is a Procurement Joint Powers Authority. It's a creation of another JPA that MCE will be a member of. Go to the next slide. And so we're looking for authority to enter into that. The JPA agreement itself was attached as part of the packet, so you can see the details there. Today I'm going to talk about the political context, some of the pros and cons of joint procurement with CCAs, a little bit of details about an existing solicitation for long duration storage that this JPA is going to be entering into. I'll talk about a sort of an overview of the JPA agreement itself, and then I'll flag some project and CCA specific agreements and some of the other issues that'll be addressed in those that are not captured in the JPA agreement. And so really the decision today is about the JPA agreement and whether the board is comfortable using that document to create this new JPA. And next slide. So political context, we've heard for a long time, given sort of the relative size of CCAs to utilities, that utilities have a big advantage with large scale procurement. They have much larger balance sheets than CCAs for financing. And so there's for a long time been discussions and thoughts about CCAs pooling their resources and doing joint procurement. There's actually been a bit of this done in the past, where CCAs would sort of procure from the same project, but they'd each procure independently. This approach is a little bit different. This is an approach where there'll be one power purchase agreement that will be shared by multiple CCAs. And so the scale for the projects can increase and the financing profile looks a little bit different. Another sort of big feature that's driving this is that's growing need for reliability resources. Natural gas plants are going offline for a number of reasons, and the last nuclear plant in California, Diablo Canyon, is also going to go offline by 2025. So there's a need for more resources on the grid to keep it operating reliably. And this joint procurement is seen as a way to not just contract with existing resources, but really get larger utility scale resources built that the grid needs in the future. We've also noticed that when the grid has these kinds of needs, that tends to be a sort of utility-centric state-ordered procurement mandate that comes down, or allocations of those resources that the utilities have procured to other load-serving entities, and that can result in costs being allocated to us. We've seen that in the past, and that kind of procurement also limits MC's ability to be a leadership in what kinds of resources are being built in California. Next slide. So this context has driven the CCAs to really take the next step and formalize the joint procurement through this new JPA. And there are some pros and there are some cons. So I've mentioned that it'll allow for larger scale projects by CCAs. It also could optimize the use of resources among CCAs. It could act as sort of a platform for CCAs to do smaller transactions to balance things out efficiently for their daily needs. And we're modeling this largely after existing JPAs that serve the municipally owned utilities and have for nearly 50 years. one of the big benefits that this JPA will have is similar to the benefit that MCE provides to its members, which is shielding the members from some liability of the JPA and the activities. There are some cons. There may be some risk shared in the price or the terms of the power purchase agreements. MCE, as you may know, has a fairly strong credit and financials relative to other CCAs. And so some of our strength may actually end up being shared by some of the other participants, and we may be taking on a little bit of their risk. Some of that's going to depend on how the terms of the actual PPA agreements are drafted. And there'll be a lot of factors to balance in that structure. Next slide. This is to give you a quick overview of an existing solicitation that this Joint Powers Authority is going to be used to get the PPA, to negotiate with a developer and actually sign deals for the contracts. And there are 9 CCAs participating in this solicitation. You can see them listed here. And this is specifically looking for offers for new long duration storage resources. Next slide. Just to give a sense of what that means. We're looking for grid charged long duration, so not necessarily solar paired with storage, but storage that can be charged by the grid. And the long duration means that it can discharge for at least 8 hours. Pretty much all the batteries being put onto the grid today, you're hearing about a lot of batteries getting built. They are 4-hour batteries, and there's a lot of thinking that this is going to leave a gap for that additional sort of 8-hour stretch. And so we're trying to get out ahead of that and meet the needs of the grid. These are in front of the meter batteries, so larger, not necessarily batteries, but in front of the meter storage projects, so larger projects aiming for commercial operation by 2026. And these will be 10-year term at least for the contracts. So think of them as sort of long-term contracts with a minimum of 50 megawatts per participant in terms of the offtake. Next slide. This is a schedule for the RFO. I just wanted to highlight for folks that it was issued in October of this year, that the deadline for folks to submit proposals is December 1st, and negotiations will be happening next year with a goal for final contract in July. Next slide. I'm actually going to turn this piece over to outside counsel who's been helping on these matters, David. I'm not sure if David, if you can unmute, but he's going to talk.
I'm here.
Great, a summary of the JPA agreement itself.
Sure, thanks, Mike. Yeah, we've been working with the parties that were previously presented on the slide earlier to prepare the joint powers agreement that's in the packet for you this evening. I'm just going to give a brief overview. We covered some of the highlights in the staff report as well. Since you are a JPA, you're familiar with the general framework that this is a separate legal entity that we're creating, and this separate legal entity will have the powers that are shared by all of the members. We of course have a relatively broad purpose statement, but it is aimed at the procurement area in particular. This JPA will exist as a legal entity as soon as at least two agencies agree to abide by its terms. And then there are, of course, provisions for exiting the JPA. I believe, like, for example, with MCE, there's a particular notice period that has to go by. But in this JPA that we have before you this evening, we're calling it CC Power, exit can occur really once there's just notice, and then there has to, of course, be payment for any back obligations and whatnot. So next slide, and I'll go over some of the governance issues. The idea here is that the board of this new JPA is going to be made up of the CEOs or the general managers of those CCAs that are members. And so this board will have authority over this JPA to the extent that it has authority over the CEO here. And although the CCAs that are contemplating being members are all different sizes, the way we've structured this is that each member of this new JPA will have one vote. And so it'll be equal voting shares. For the most part, for simple votes, it's going to be a majority of those directors that are attending, as long as there's a quorum, that will constitute action. For example, on voting on whether or not to pursue a particular project. But for significant changes, it's going to be 2/3 of the entire board, and not just of those of the quorum that's attending. Next slide, please.
Just to interrupt, I'm sorry, this is Kevin Haroff. When you say significant changes, how's that defined?
Yeah, sure. That is, it's listed in the JPA, but those essentially relate to changes that would affect how costs are allocated under the JPA, changes that would change the purpose of the JPA itself, changes that would go to the rules governing withdrawal and termination of members. So it's sort of those big issues that relate to it. And I can refer you to the particular section where we lay out, where the proposal lays out the different voting strengths. I believe it's in, let's see here.
.5.06, I believe.
5.06.
On
Correct.
page
That's
7
correct.
of the JPA agreement.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to raise that to make sure everyone understands the distinction between ordinary decision making and something that might be more significant, because we all need to understand that. So.
Okay. All right, so then some key features here. As Mike mentioned, there will be the ability for this new JPA to enjoy MCE's credit strength, but really that is going to be dealt with in the particular project level agreements. Mike will go over that in a little more detail shortly. And then one thing that we have done at the direction of the administration here and some of the other CCAs is we're limiting the JPA's ability to engage in its own advocacy work, really limiting it only to the particular projects that it's approved. And that, I think, is, from my understanding, it's based on the idea that, you know, Cal CCA has an advocacy role, and we don't want there to be overlapping jurisdictions with respect to that type of activity. And then along with the equal voting shares, which I mentioned, the administrative costs are going to be equal among the members. And these are actually relatively minimal costs. I think we've itemized some estimates in the staff report. And it's really just kind of dealing with the day-to-day running to the extent that that's necessary for the general administration. But when it comes to project level costs, those things are going to be broken down likely on different grounds. And so there's going to be cost allocation that's going to be separate and apart from how that works. But I think what's important here is that because each entity has one vote, every entity is paying an equal share. And that, I think that makes sense. And then lastly, the JPA board does have the power to hire a general manager, either part or full-time, depending upon how much work there's going to be at a particular time. And the JPA board has the ability to hire other folks as well, if that's necessary. And next slide. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Mike, because we did want to talk about some of the specific project level issues here. And I do think it's important to know that, you know, we were working with a lot of agencies. We wanted to get this moving quickly. And so the idea was that we would create a structure, a governance structure that would allow specific projects to be formed. And then the more detailed and perhaps more difficult negotiations are going to happen on that project by project level.
Thank you,
back to
David.
you, Mike.
Appreciate it. Yeah, so I just wanted to highlight a few things about how the projects themselves will work. The structure is going to have one power purchase agreement between the JPA and the project developer. And then there'll be separate agreements on the back end amongst the CCAs and the JPA to address differences for those participants, like how much each participant's going to take from the project in terms of energy, how to deal with the relative credit strength, There'll be, CCAs that don't have credit ratings potentially participating in these projects, and we may need to provide credit support for those folks. That may be different. MCE may not have collateral requirements and other credit requirements because of our relative strength. There may be differences in price, again, based partly on, offtake and credit strength of the parties. And so we've built into the JPA agreement a reference to these differences that we're looking to be negotiated down the road when these actual projects are being fleshed out. But how these things will be allocated are not spelled out in the JPA agreement. Next slide. So this is the recommended action to authorize MCE to form this procurement JPA. It will be called California Community Power, and it will be comprised of CCAs initially. There may be other public entities that can participate down the road. This was presented to the executive committee on November 6th, and they voted to recommend this action to the board. Next slide. And happy to open it up for any questions.
Great. Thank you, Mike and David. Questions from the board? Barbara?
Director Kohler.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm glad we spoke about this a lot in the executive committee because I think we worked out some of the wrinkly issues. I have two questions. One is really small about the JPA agreement under section 3.04, which talks about withdrawal. And I'm wondering if we should have sort of a time frame in there, like a 60-day period, rather than the way it's written right now is you just turn in a resolution and you're done. And I'm not sure that we wouldn't want to have sort of a 60-day advance notice or something to wrap things up and make sure nothing was left hanging. But the other piece that I think Mike and both David kind of spoke about was the credit rating issue, and that MCE might need to lend its credit rating strength to others. And I guess that concerns me. I'm not sure that if everybody is entering into this JPA, aren't there alternative ways where other CCAs that do not have a credit rating or have a lesser credit rating could beef up their own credit rating so we wouldn't have to potentially risk what we've worked so hard for? And maybe I'm just paranoid. So maybe that's a question for Mike.
Yeah, or if it's okay, I'll take a first cut at it, and Mike can certainly chime in. And I'll address your first comment first, the kind of the 60-day waiting period before withdrawing. I think that the reason that it is structured the way it is that the real messiness around a departing member is tied to the program agreements. So this JPA that we're looking to create is really sort of an overarching shell in a way that will create the opportunity for the members to transact with each other through specified project agreements. But if a CCA is a member but isn't involved in any project agreements, there really isn't any consequence of their withdrawing from the agency. I should also point out that we're kind of at the point where it's pens down as far as negotiating changes to the agreement, because there are so many different CCAs that are going to their governing bodies. It really wouldn't be practical for all the CCA boards to be suggesting changes. So unless there's something egregious that means we don't want to sign on, we probably aren't going to have the opportunity to do any wordsmithing. But to answer your really substantive good question about credit, this has been an issue that we as MCE have brought up throughout the process of creating this document and working with the other CCAs. And we have kind of socialized a couple of ideas that have been common for other joint procurement entities and associations around the state. primarily that, I mean, what we contemplate working into any project agreements, if we do end up transacting under the auspices of the CCA or this JPA, we would be wanting to make sure that we are made whole in some way, shape, or form. And that would most likely be through some type of price discount that is passed along to entities that have a credit rating at or above a certain level. Or another way that we could approach this is by choosing to only enter into agreements with other CCAs that have an equivalent or higher credit rating than we do at the time that we enter into those agreements. Simply joining this JPA doesn't obligate us to enter into any project agreements, but it does allow us to be part of the RFO process, look at the bids that are coming in, and then decide if we do want to transact, and if so, who we would want to transact with. And I think the reason that Mike highlighted this issue is that we wanted to make it clear that we're watching it closely. We're really aware of this issue, and we'll be going into any potential agreements with eyes wide open to make sure that we are made whole based on our credit rating or ratings at the time. And that's something we'll be needing to grapple with when we get to the project agreement stage. And anytime there is a potential project agreement with other CCAs, we will bring that to the technical committee, to our board, for discussion, as appropriate, just like we would with any power supply agreement. And that'll be one of the issues that we'll highlight then and make sure that we're covering all the bases there.
Okay. Here
This is Kevin.
I'm
If I
sorry,
could
there.
I just wanted to ask a quick question. Could I do that?
You're jumping the line there, Kevin.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
There,
Go ahead.
Director Lyman, Director Wagon Connect, Director Harif, and then Withy.
I just want to make sure that everyone knows that I'm recusing myself for the apparent conflict with my employer. So I will continue to have my camera off during this item.
Great. Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Greg. Wagon Connect.
I think this sounds like a brilliant idea. I love it. I want to do more of it.
Ask a question.
Yep.
Harif.
Great. Kevin, I think you're next. Yeah.
Oh, good. Sorry for being abrupt. I just wanted to ask Garth if he could kind of weigh in with his sense. I mean, this is all sounds terrific to me, but one of the things I do worry about is the dilution of our credit ratings, or the potential dilution of our credit ratings, which we've worked very, very hard to get. And I want to make sure that our CFO is comfortable with this.
Yes, Director Harat. So I'm happy to address it. And yeah, absolutely. I think what this JPA agreement is I think it was mentioned, is basically it's a format to utilize. So no decisions have been made about projects that we would participate in, about any collateral credit risk we would take with other CCAs in these projects. And so, there's a lot of precedent for utilizing joint powers authorities with a number of municipal utilities, for example, and a number of different ways to address that, the fact that some of the participants in a project would have lower credit ratings than others. And so I don't have any concern certainly about the agreement itself, and the notion that MC would be a participant. I mean, it poses a potential really great opportunity for us for economies of scale with other projects and so on. But again, I think it's important that we just think about the fact that there's no commitment being made here one way or another to, for example, to take collateral credit risk or take the credit risk of any other CCA. Those details will be negotiated out and determined with each individual project agreement. And as I think it was mentioned, we might decide to participate in some projects and not others, and with different participants. And so, there's a lot of what we want is flexibility, and then to be able to make the decision as we go forward, and then address those credit concerns.
Can I
in the-
push
in
on that a little bit? Can I push you on that a little bit, Garth?
Sure.
Because I think we all understand that there aren't any credit implications for this particular agreement. Because as you say, what counts as the power purchase agreements that would be negotiated. So I guess what I hear Kevin asking is, are you comfortable that in negotiations for the PPAs, there are enough models out there, experience that you've had, or just ways to structure deals that you think it will be possible to negotiate specifics of a PPA without jeopardizing MCE's credit rating?
And that's really the point of my question. So thank you, Kate.
You're welcome.
Oh yeah, so I apologize if I missed the basis of it. So no, there absolutely is. There's many different ways. You know, we're not inventing the wheel here at all. And you know, there are tried and true structures that have been utilized to sort of ring fence individual credits. You know, in these agreements, and others, as Mike had mentioned, where it may make sense for maybe a strong credit like MCE to have what's, for example, called a step-up provision that says, hey, if one of the other weaker CCAs doesn't perform or something under the agreement, then we would step up and potentially also take their energy in that case. But also help to make sure that the overall structure stays intact. There's other approaches as well where we would, you know, the PPA would be individually directed towards each participant, and so we would get our price and based on our credit, and then that other participant who may have a lesser credit rating or no credit rating would get it maybe at a different price and so on. So I think that was mentioned as well. So, I mean, the point is there's lots of ways to address it. I don't think that you know, we are in any way fundamentally potentially doing something that's going to necessarily jeopardize our credit. And there are lots of ways to address it.
Great, thank you.
Director Wibby and Director Kuhnhart, did you withdraw or you just have your hand raised? Wibby and then Kuhnhart.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is Anthony from Pinole. I also have a conflict with my employer. So I just wanted to say that I wouldn't be voting either.
All right, thank you, Anthony.
Yeah, hi. Actually, much of my questioning has been resolved by the commentary, the most recent commentary. My question is a little follow-on, a little bit nuanced. I hope I don't blow this. What I'm trying to get to is this makes sense, it seems to me, if for those deals where no CCA alone can achieve the scale to be able to do it. So there is in the transition towards if that's correct, then there is in the transition towards this going to be a subset of deals for which MCE alone is potentially better positioned to enter into the transaction than the JPA. And until you get to a scale where only the JPA can enter into the transaction, is there therefore an underlying tension and conflict as we move into this where MCE only deals could potentially be compromised because of our good faith attempt with regards to the participation in the JPA? I realize that's a somewhat nuanced question, but I'm interested in, as we transition from where we are now to the scale that the JPA will hopefully achieve, that there isn't some sort of in middle ground where there's a problem.
I'll respond and just say that I don't see it necessarily as a zero-sum game. It's are we going to get that project, or is the new JPA going to get that project? There's some benefit, even if we could do a project entirely on our own, in sharing that project with other folks, because we get more diversity in resources. If there's a failure of that project, you know, storm or a wildfire takes that project offline, we only have a slice of it now instead of the entire thing. And so it allows us to kind of diversify our risk across more resources. So even if we could do a project on our own, it may not be the right choice to go on our own as opposed to going through this JPA. And I think there's nothing in the agreement here or the project specific agreements that we've contemplated that would, sort of commit us to using this JPA versus pursuing a project independently. And while that could, ruffle feathers among CCAs, we currently compete for projects. So I don't see it as a big new conflict from that perspective.
So Madam Chair, one quick follow-up comment question. So then is it correct then that I should be viewing this as a tool for MCE to sort of almost like socialize or, spread the risk among CCAs for projects in addition to building scale, otherwise build scale? Is that a correct interpretation, the way we should be looking at this?
I would answer yes. I think you were directing that toward.
That was a softball question, so you better answer yes.
Director Kuhnhart.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Darlene. I have two questions about oversight. Number one, will it always be the case that this board will have approved a participation in a project before it goes into this JPA?
Board, go ahead.
And the second question is, will there be any opportunity for public oversight or oversight by any elected representatives of the public over that GPA that is otherwise the board is guided by CEOs?
Yeah, great question. So this board will absolutely approve any deal that JPA is going to enter into if MCE is a participant. This board will likely not make a decision about a project that JPA will enter into if MCE is not participating. Sorry, what was the second question?
Will there be any opportunities for the public or elected representatives of the public to have oversight of the activities of this JPA, this Uber HE?
Yeah, definitely. So yes, I would say there was a decision made today to set the CEOs or general managers as the board members, and that was largely for administrative simplicity and to save folks time. That could be amended if there's interest. There could be a vote, and that could be changed to elected officials. But I think the more sort of direct opportunity today is through the meetings of this JPA and through the oversight you have over Dawn as a member there. The meetings will be Brown Act meetings, similarly to MCE, so they'll be available to the public. They'll be noticed in advance with materials and agendas in advance. So there'll be a similar opportunity to participate there as there is with MCE in terms of from a public perspective.
Thank you.
And the board could always be changed to be elected officials.
Elizabeth, did you have a question?
No.
Oh, okay. Anyone else who has a question or a comment?
The only thing I would say is I was reading the red line of the authority agreement, and it does state what Mike just said. I just want to make sure that there's extra effort made to make sure the board members actually see the minutes, and maybe it should just be a regular agenda item that if there's been some activity that it would be discussed. So you have sort of a standing place in the agenda. And because there will be a changeover with board members, they may not have the history about all of this. So it's a suggestion that you have it as a standing agenda item.
Great, thank you. Eddie?
Yes, you may have recalled in the past, I've advocated that we will go into, our industry will go into merger and acquisition stage. This JPA seems to me to give us the opportunity to get a in-close, upright inspection of potential takeover targets, and to put it bluntly. And so therefore, I'm very much in support of it, but I would also like us to remember and to be aware that in the next 3 to 5 years, we need, I mean, as good as we may be and as big as we may be, we need to be much bigger. And we generally, in this stage of the industry, we should be seriously looking and should have possibly a committee looking at possible acquisitions.
You're a scary guy, Eddie. Other comments or questions from board members? Yeah,
If
Ford.
there are no other comments or questions, I would
Good.
move for
Oh,
approval.
I'm moving out, and I'm moving down to Ford Green right now, though.
Okay,
Ford?
and we're comment is okay?
You sure?
Okay, doke. I think this is a great idea. It puts us in a position to be able to use economies of scale, to be on more of an even footing with PG&E. The kind of the big target now, given climate change, weather, and fire, and the rest of it, is storage and is battery storage. And I think that one of the means that this JPA will provide is going to make our means for being able to gain storage facilities and storage capacity much better. And that'll help, in turn, help resource adequacy and other responsibilities that we have that we don't necessarily have control over. So I think those are really good reasons to support this.
Great. Thank you, Ford. Any other questions or comments from board members?
Director Meisner?
Thank you. I want to agree. I listened in on the executive committee last week when it was discussed, and it was a really robust conversation. So I appreciate all the work and the effort that's gone into this, and I do support it as well.
Great. Thank you. Elizabeth, were you trying to make a motion earlier and I stopped you?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
So I so move that we agree, and I agree with all the comments. I think this is really visionary, and I think that you all expressed what the opportunity presents, and you identified some of the reasons why. So I give credit to Tom Butt for pushing forward on this, and therefore make a motion to authorize MCE to form a new procurement JPA with other CCAs.
Second.
All right. And do we have anyone from the public who'd like to comment? Okay. I'm hearing none. So
None.
Doreen, all right. Thank you. Darlene, do you want to do a roll call?
Belvedere,
Yes.
Benicia,
Yes.
Concord,
Yes.
Contra Costa County, Corte Madera,
Yes.
Danville.
Yes.
Oh, Bob, you're here. Great. Thank you. El Cerrito, conflict of interest,
Not
abstain.
voting, right? Yeah,
Yes.
abstain.
Fairfax,
Aye.
Lafayette,
Yes.
Larkspur,
Yes.
County of Marin,
Yes.
Martinez, Moraga, County of Napa and all 5 Napa cities,
Yes.
Novato,
Yes.
Oakley,
Yes.
Pinole abstains, no vote. Pittsburgh,
Yes.
Pleasant Hill,
Yes.
Richmond,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
San Anselmo,
Yes.
San Pablo,
Yes.
San Rafael,
Yes.
San Ramon,
Yes.
Sausalito and Mill Valley,
Yes.
County of Solano, Tiburon,
Yes.
Vallejo.
Yes.
Great.
Unanimous
Thank you,
roll call.
everyone. Thank you, Darlene. Thank you, everyone. And this is a significant and important step. So I appreciate everyone's support of taking that step. All right. Let's move on to item 7 on our agenda, which is the addition of board members to committees. Dawn, did you want to take the lead on this one?
Yeah, I'll just say a couple of words. So we try and do this from time to time, and kind of open it up for board members to join existing committees or new committees. Sometimes we're forming ad hoc committees. At this time, we have a couple of folks that are interested in joining an existing committee, and you'll see in your packet who we've got interested here. And I think also this is a little bit of an unusual meeting because we do have quite a few board members that are going to be departing at the end of the year. And we're going to spend a little time to talk about that later in the agenda. We also have elections later in the agenda for our new chair and vice chair that will take place starting at the beginning of the year. But right now we're just talking about additions to committees, and any board member can express interest right now in being on any committee. The folks that have already expressed interest include, for the executive committee, Director Sally Wilkinson, who will be taking over representation for Belvedere, taking on after Bob McCaskill steps down. And I must say that Director McCaskill has done an amazing job of giving a lot of background information to Director Wilkinson, and she actually attended an orientation recently, so is ready to go and has a strong finance background. So she's expressed an interest in serving on the executive committee and also serving on the ad hoc bonding committee, as her predecessor did. So we'd like to recommend getting her added. And then we also have a new representative interested in the ad hoc bonding committee, Director Birsan. And so we're recommending that that he be added to that committee. But before we take any action, I'd love to hear if there are board members that would like to volunteer to be on any committee that you're not currently on.
John, can I ask you a question? The executive committee list is long in part because it has some of us departing members on it. What is the total number of board members who can participate in the executive committee? I think there'll be 10. Yeah.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
Okay.
We don't want to, we have to be careful about not getting to a quorum of the board. And also one other thing we have to watch out for is that we don't end up inadvertently creating a quorum of any other committee. So folks that are involved in more than one committee, sometimes we have to just look carefully at that and make sure we're not having a violation there. Right.
And this is Greg Lyman. I just want to make sure that's quorum by percent vote or quorum by person count.
Person count. Person count.
Yeah.
Anthony, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I am an alternate, but Contra Costa hasn't finalized the elections, I believe. We're still got a few more votes. We did set a date to have the new council come on, but we haven't assigned people to committees. I'm gonna go for the MCE committee again, but I'm just wondering, can alternates be on any of the committees for MCE?
We haven't put alternates officially in committees, but alternates are always welcome to attend any committee, and so that might be a starting point. And then if and when you become the board representative, you would already have some background there. But board members and alternates are always welcome to attend any committee meeting that they choose.
Okay, depending on how our council lands, I'd like to, have a civil water resources background. I would love to be placed on the committee.
That's terrific. That's great. And of course, there can be additional adjustments here to committees in January, this isn't the end of the story. I think it's terrific that Eddie Burson and Sally Wilkinson want to be on the bonding committee, and Sally also wants to be on the executive committee. Has anyone else, any other board members, been thinking about the lure and the allure, I should say, of any of these committees while we've been chatting? That you want to raise your hand? Forward.
I see that because Greg Lyman's going to be leaving the ad hoc contracts committee, there'll be an opening there, and I'm interested in that.
Wonderful.
Excellent.
Great news. And I should point out that a couple of our ad hoc committees typically end at the end of a year and then restart the next year, kind of depending on the cycle. But we will be forming a 2020 ad hoc contracts committee as well. But I think we should go ahead and add Director Green to that committee tonight, just to create some continuity.
Great. Anybody else felt the lure of committees? Katie? Yeah.
I'm interested. I think I'm going to get my feet wet first on the board of directors, and then I definitely would love to participate, but I think I'll wait till the next opportunity.
Great. Well, think very seriously about the technical committee. As I always say, it is the best.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
I just wanted to put a boost on that last comment. The technical committee is not super technical, but it is the first and deepest opportunity to see the nitty-gritty of new projects, new investments, new activities, new ideas that are coming forward. And so it really is where, to me, it's where the rubber hits the road. It's the most fun. I agree.
We were thinking of renaming it, I think, thinking that the word technical perhaps was discouraging people. So you might want to consider
we could call it projects and parties.
Actually, Kate, this is Kevin. I actually encourage a consideration of renaming to something more along the lines of operational or something like that, because I think that's more appropriate.
I think that's great to consider.
Director
that.
Withy and then Perkins.
You know, I've just had my thunder stolen from me. I wanted to promote the technical committee. Obviously, I'm peeling off of it, but the important thing is to reiterate what some of the other board directors have pointed out. The technical committee, in the end, is one of its primary responsibilities is overseeing and approving the integrated resource plan. The integrated resource plan is the core operational essence of MCE. Its future depends upon how well the integrated resource plan is constructed. It's the long-term, medium-term operational document for the organization, for the enterprise. And it's in the charge of the technical committee to oversee that. So I think, you know, not tonight and after, you know, I'm rolling off and in January and beyond, I think you might want to consider exactly what's, and I agree, operational committee, that's a good idea, Kevin, is, you know, a very important body to make sure you have a diverse team on that to help with that oversight.
Scott, did you want to say something?
Yeah,
Wait a second, Elizabeth. Scott?
I may be unique here, but the word technical committee was the words that attracted me to the committee.
Operations and technical committee. How about that? Does that help?
Your preference was accurate. You are unique.
Director Patterson.
Yeah, I think it should be named If You Want to Understand Anything Committee. Katie, I highly you're perfect. You'll get out a lot out of it.
All right. Anybody else? Yeah.
The technical committee, it meets in the morning, doesn't it? Is that what's the schedule? So this is unique with Zoom. I don't know once COVID is over, do we meet in person or does the committee meet in person?
We do meet in person, and we hold the meeting in both of our office locations so that you can choose which one you go to. Occasionally folks will need to dial in, and we can accommodate that as long as we're able to notice your location on the agenda. And we have some accommodations for folks that participate from other locations as well. And I see Director Lyman may have a comment on that.
Yeah, I was going to point out that the city of El Cerrito has opens its doors to the public and has in the past been a remote office, just like San Rafael or Concord. So, and I know San Ramon has a comparable office, a remote office set up. So we actually have been having that meeting held in 4 different locations, all noticed and all open to the public.
Director Perkins, did you have your hand raised?
Add that, yeah, San Ramon, we notice it and it's open to the public, and I only have to drive to my city hall to get to the meeting.
Yeah, so we're pretty flexible, Katie. So if you want to jump on in there and get up to speed real quick, you're welcome to get.
All right, I'm in.
Good work. I love it. That's great.
I'll see if I can meet in Vallejo City Hall too. The mayor is a friend of mine, so I'll use his office.
Perfect.
Hopefully.
All right.
He's there too.
Excellent. All right. Anybody else want to follow Katie's lead and just jump on into something? All right. I'm not seeing anybody. So Dawn, you would like us to take action here,
Yeah.
I think. Can you
Great.
summarize where we are now?
Sure. So the action would be to add Director Wilkinson when she joins the board to the executive committee, to add Director Wilkinson and Director Bersan to the ad hoc bonding committee, to add Director Green to the contracts committee, and to add Director Miesner to the technical committee. Did I miss anyone?
That's it. You got them.
Super.
Right.
It's really good. All right. Who wants to make the motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll
Second.
Second.
Okay, did you get that, Kate?
No, you had a bevy of seconds, so I think we're really covered really well.
Sue, did you move?
Yes, I'll move.
Okay, and who was the second?
I was tied with somebody. This is Patterson.
I seconded, but I think other people did too. It's
Okay,
Holly.
that's okay. I'll just pick one.
Okay, Darlene.
Okay.
Roll call when you're ready.
Belvedere,
Yes.
Benicia,
Yes.
Concord,
Yes.
Contra Costa County, Corte Madera,
Yes.
Danville,
Yes.
El Cerrito,
Yes.
Fairfax,
Yes.
Lafayette,
Yes.
Larkspur,
Yes.
County of Marin,
Yes.
Martinez, Moraga, Napa,
Yes.
Novato,
Yes.
Oakley,
Yes.
Pinole,
Yes.
Pittsburgh,
Yes.
Pleasant Hill,
Yes.
Richmond,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
San Anselmo,
Yes.
San Pablo,
Yes.
San Rafael,
Yes.
San Ramon,
Yes.
Sausalito and Mill Valley,
Yes.
County of Solano, Tiburon,
Yes.
Vallejo.
Yes.
Unanimous roll call.
Super. Thanks very much, everyone. All right, let's move on to item 8, which is consideration of a resolution rescinding a previous resolution and delegating energy procurement authority. And Vicken, I think this is your item, yeah?
Yes, Director Sears. Thank you. Hi, everyone. So just want to mention that we had a pretty lively discussion on November 6th at the XCOM on the subject matter. Just wanted to provide you the details of it. So as I'm sure you could recall, in August and September of this year, when we had super heat waves, we had the fires, we had the smoke, we had bad air quality, And I gotta again mention that the MCE, the load continues to grow no matter what is thrown at us. So that's a good challenge to have, but it was very challenging when in some days in those, in August, especially when we went into blackouts for the first time since year 2000, 2001, we found ourselves that we had a tool missing in our toolbox as to how we would be able to better provide for our load forecast, increased full load forecast for with our resources. As you would know, we procure long-term contracts in energy, in array resources, but in these days when prices spike very high in the $5,000–6,000 per megawatt hour, in Southern California it was much worse. We found ourselves that in this missing tool is that we do not have permission from you to use verbal confirmations on short-term in days and in hours for a specific megawatt amounts that we were seeing ourselves short in, and not be exposed in the ISO's market that, well, basically it became extremely high. We could have saved ourselves probably millions of dollars by procuring, if we had the permission to use a telephone confirmation, by reaching out through our scheduling coordinator agent, Z Global's trading desk, and have them reach out on predetermined megawatt amount, on predetermined cost basis, how much we would like to buy in this short term when there is no time to do paper approval transactions. We want the authority. So overall, this request is within our existing rules, but this tool is the one that's missing. We would like your approval. I'll stop over here and see if there are any questions.
So Vic, and I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead,
Kate.
Kevin. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just I'm confused why we didn't have this authority to do this previously. I mean, it seems like a no-brainer.
I can speak to that if you'd like, Vicken.
Of course.
There's kind of historical comments about that. I think when we were initially forming MCE, there was an interest in just making sure that all the transactions were documented on paper, and just there wasn't a scenario envisioned at that time that would call for verbal transactions, verbal approval of transactions. And we now have a scenario that calls for it. So that's why it's coming up now.
And that's fine. And it just seems like a matter of correction, but it seems like it's probably also kind of I'm guessing it's best practices to allow this authority.
It's more common with private energy service providers. It's very common. It's the way that many transactions are done with energy service providers. Sometimes municipal utilities and local government agencies have less comfort with verbal transactions, but if you do not allow for verbal transactions, your ability to move in the market is somewhat constrained. So we think it's worth the adjustment there.
Okay, and thank you for that. And I think I've expressed my views. So go ahead,
Andrew.
Director McCullough.
Yeah, I just in looking at the staff report, it appears from the example cited that this, or at least a fairly significant example of this, came to pass over Memorial Day. And Vicken, you mentioned that there were potentially millions of dollars that we sacrificed by not having a little more nimbleness in our procurement ability. Why is it taking this long to come to the board if this was a fix that might have been accomplished earlier?
Oh, that's a good question.
And I can also weigh in on this one if you want.
Oh,
Victor,
please,
and I don't
Dawn,
want to
I'm
steal your
stuck.
thunder,
Yeah.
but you know, I think that first I would note that yes, there were conditions in the market that caused the cost of power to spike to dramatic levels, and we we may have been able to mitigate that to some degree with the ability to do verbal transactions, but that's not a certainty. There's a lot of unknowns when you're entering into transactions in the market, because you don't know if you're going to end up paying more or less than how things settle out at the end. So we wanted to really look closely at the kind of the pros and cons of bringing this to the board. We also determined that if there was a need to enter into verbal transactions, that there would have been, we could have found some other ways to make it work, but after that time, there really wasn't another urgent need that came up. And we felt that going to the board for approval would be a more clear, it would give us more clear-cut authority to enter into these types of transactions. We did do some legal analysis to look at existing authority, and our legal analysis came back saying that it was a bit of a gray area, but it would be reasonable for us to go ahead with verbal transactions if we chose to do that. I felt that it would be better to go to the board to get that approval, written in stone and super clear, but was prepared, over the course of the last couple of months to move forward under our legal opinion if there was a need in the market. So if that hadn't been the case, we probably would have called a special meeting or had an urgency item. But that's the reason that we felt that it would be okay to wait.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Director
Director McCullough,
Whitty?
just want to add one more thing to that. Since then, we went ahead and did, with the assistance of PA, short-term, but over several month procurements to cover our shortage instead of relying on telephone confirmations, but we took some actions about that. Just some additional info.
Director Withy?
Yeah, thank you. This is, of course, we need to approve this. This is part of growing up as an organization. And, it's also part of the tension that exists with an organization like this, like ours, like this enterprise, and the fact you're operating as a public agency under the Brown Act and all the various things of transparency, that record keeping that go along with that, and that we're trying to actually promote as a model for how to make this work. But we do need to find that flexibility to do this sort of stuff. So I wouldn't worry about the fact that we didn't get it done last year, or that we're putting it off, or should we put it off to next year. We just need to do it as part of the growing up process. And there's going to be lots of things like this that we're going to have to change in the future.
Thanks, Ray. Other comments or questions? So, Vic, and as a father, did you want to comment on the growing up process?
Oh God, not now. I've been complaining about it to Dawn this afternoon. But I would like to make a comment to Director Harroff's comment on the telephone conversations, telephone approval. We will have the records, the phone call records available to us, and a paper transaction will follow within days or so of what we committed to do orally. So I just want to let you know that the paper follow-up will come. It's just that after the telephone approvals are done.
Fine, Vic, and thank you for clarifying that. It's absolutely appropriate and important to document transactions, but the documentation should not stand in the way of making these transactions accomplished in an efficient way.
Director
if I-
Lyman.
Oh,
I'm sorry, Vicken.
no, go ahead. That's fine. Go ahead.
This is incredibly minor, but technically this is going to be our third resolution of the year, even though it's numbered number 4. And I know in our next agenda item is where number 3 is taken up. And I just want to make sure that, Darlene, that the fact that these are taken out of sequence is not going to cause you heartburn.
I get heartburn anyway, so it's okay. It's
Okay.
No,
okay.
Just want to make sure that we're not, creating havoc by our third action actually being called the 4th. So.
No,
Director Lyman,
actually not.
Yeah, we had Catalina check on those before numbering them. So, but thank you for the comment.
He's just a numbers guy through and through. Other questions or comments from the board? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to comment on this item? Not seeing anybody. Darlene, are you? No?
No.
All right. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Motion by what?
I'll move resolution 2020-04, rescinding resolution number 2018-03 and delegating energy procurement authority.
And this is Kevin Haroff. I'd be happy to second that motion, please.
Thank you. Darlene?
Belvedere,
Yes.
Venetia,
Yes.
Concord,
Yes.
Contra Costa County, Corte Madera,
Yes.
Danville,
Yes.
El Cerrito,
Yes.
Fairfax,
Yes.
Lafayette,
Yes.
Larkspur,
Yes.
County of Marin,
Yes.
Martinez, Moraga, Napa,
Yes.
Novato, Oakley,
Yes.
Pinole,
Yes.
Pittsburgh,
Yes.
Pleasant Hill,
Yes.
Richmond,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
San Anselmo,
Yes.
San Pablo,
Yes.
San Rafael,
Yes.
San Ramon,
Yes.
Sausalito, and Mill Valley,
Yes.
County of Solano, Tiburon, Vallejo,
Yes.
Walnut Creek. Unanimous roll call.
Great. Thank you very much, Darlene. All
Thank
righty.
you.
Let's move on. Next on our agenda is our receiving applicant analysis and consider
Excuse me, I
approving.
thought I heard a no.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You said unanimous roll call, but I thought there was a no vote.
Was there a no vote?
Okay, my hearing wrong.
Okay. Thanks for checking, Eddie. Appreciate it. All right. So next is we want to receive applicant analysis and consider approving the city of Fairfield as a member of MCE. I'm not sure who's in charge of this presentation.
Yeah, we're going to hear from Leanne Hoadley, who is MCE's Manager of Community and Customer Engagement. And we're also
Great.
going to hear from John DeLessie,
Excellent.
Operations and Development with PEA.
Terrific.
Hello, directors. I'm not sure why my video isn't working. It was working earlier. I'm Leanne Hoadley. I'm the manager of our community and customer engagement team, and I'm glad to be introducing our staff recommendation for the City of Fairfield inclusion, which they would be eligible for MCE membership in 2022. I want to thank the executive committee for their questions during the presentation we gave on the inclusion report during the November 6th XCOM meeting. I'm going to go over a very few brief slides, and now that I'm realizing it, there we go. Okay, super. Thank you. And on the City of Fairfield, and then I'll welcome John DeLessie from PEA to cover the analysis portion, which they've prepared. So last year, after a number of city staff conversations, MCE was invited to present to the Fairfield City Council on April 2nd. MCE was invited back to present again to the City Council, and finally, in the month of December 2019, the Fairfield City Council held their first and then second readings of the ordinance authorizing the implementation of a CCA program in the City of Fairfield and approved the MCE Joint Powers Agreement. Next slide.
Yeah, I just can't. No, it's just driving me crazy.
Thank you. Fairfield would be the 4th largest city in MCE service after Vallejo's enrollment this coming April. Fairfield has a population of approximately 117 individuals and approximately 42,000 utility accounts, making Fairfield's account base very close to that of the city of Richmond. And Fairfield would add approximately 8% to our account base. The city population skews on the younger side, as you can see, and the city assumes a moderate average annual population increase. Next slide. Some fun facts. The city of Fairfield in the Sassoon Valley area is becoming known as the candy and wine region, with several active wineries as well as candy makers producing in the area, which I'm looking forward to visiting someday soon. And there are several large business employers as represented on the slides. So now, next slide. And I'm welcoming John DeLessie from PEA to continue with the quantitative analysis portion of the presentation.
Hello, good evening. This is John DeLessie with PEA. And so the quantitative portion of this, it really is, it relates to MC's policy for considering new members. And so policy number 7 requires an assessment to verify that adding the new member and the new customers would have either a positive or at least a neutral fiscal impact to MCE. And that also the expansion or the inclusion would accelerate greenhouse gas emissions reductions and increase the amount of renewable energy being used in California marketplace. So conducted the quantitative analysis that looks at the loads and the new customers in the city and evaluated these criteria. So we can go to the next slide, please. In terms of the overall timeline, we're here today. So assuming the decision is made to approve the inclusion of Fairfield, an implementation plan amendment would be submitted to the CPUC next month, and they have roughly 90 days to review and approve that plan. So we'd be looking in spring of, excuse me for a second. We'd be looking in spring of next year to get the feedback from the CPUC. And then the earliest that the customers could be served would be January of 2022. We typically do the enrollments in spring, so that would be the expectation. We can go to the next slide, please. So this is just background on MCE's existing customer base. So this would be MCE before the addition of Fairfield. So we have about 547,000 customers, annual sales of 5,550 gigawatt hours, and revenues on the order of about $470 million. So you can just sort of keep these numbers in context when we look at what the loads are associated with the city of Fairfield. Go to the next one, please. So here is the potential customers. So this is all of the currently bundled service customers in the city. So we have removed the customers that are taking direct access service. Some of these customers would be expected to opt out, but this would be the maximum potential increase in customer base. So there's about 42,000 customers, about 450,000 or so megawatt hours per year of energy consumption. And you can see the breakout here among the various end uses. The category there at the bottom that's labeled other non-residential, because of customer confidentiality rules, we've had to aggregate some of the customer classes that have just a few accounts. So this is really primarily, it's going to be large commercial, industrial, and agricultural customers. Those are all lumped together in that category. Go to the next one, please. So this is a distribution of energy consumption or energy sales by the different customer segments. And this is very, very similar to the existing customer base. It's almost exactly the same in terms of the split between residential and commercial and the other end uses. So it really would be, for the most part, sort of a proportional increase in MCE, very similar mix of customers. So adding these customers would be about an 8% increase in sales, in revenues, and in surplus. And so we'll get to that in a moment here, but we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so in terms of some of the key assumptions that go into this analysis, we have assumed a 10% opt-out rate or a 90% customer participation rate. And that's consistent with experience that MCE has had with recent expansions. The basic approach to evaluating the fiscal impact is to look at the incremental revenues that would be billed to these new customers, and then look at the incremental costs associated with serving these new customers. Most of that, of course, is power, but there are also some additional costs related to billing the customers, providing service through the call center, and some additional fees that would be paid to PG&E. And so the difference between the incremental revenue and the incremental cost, if it's positive, then there's a fiscal benefit. So that's what we're hoping to see when we do these analyses, that we have a positive difference between the revenues and the costs. And go to the next one, please. So we've presented here for the first 2 fiscal years. That would include the new customers. So FY22 and 23, and then FY23 and 24. The revenues average about $33 million a year, incremental revenue, I should say, average about $33 million a year. And the incremental costs average about $28 million per year. So we are estimating that there would be a incremental net revenue or fiscal benefit of about $5 million per year. So you can think of this as, when MCEs looks at its financial statements, and there's sort of that increase in net position, that this would be the equivalent of an additional increase in net position of about $5 million per year. The next one, please. And then in terms of, these are forecasts, these are projections, and how could they change? What factors could make those numbers not as positive? The biggest uncertainty unknown would be power costs. So we looked at a sensitivity of, let's say you approve the expansion, between that point in time, or between when this analysis was done and when the power is contracted to serve that extra load, if power prices were to move up significantly, and in this case we tested a 20% increase, which is quite a large increase. That's that would be something like a less than 5% probability of that happening in this time frame. The expected fiscal impact would still be positive, but it would be lower. Instead of 5.6 million, it would be $1.6 million per year. So still would be positive even in a fairly extreme, kind of power price spike scenario. The other sensitivity we looked at was the around opt-out rates or participation rates. So we looked at a 25% opt-out rate, which is pretty extreme, and that doesn't do a whole lot of damage to the benefit. It really just reduces it in proportion. So instead of looking at a 5.6 million a year benefit, it would be 4.7 million per year benefit, just because you have fewer customers that would be served if more of them opted out. And then the third sensitivity was really a rate scenario. And the thinking here is, we're always, wondering what's going to happen with PCIA, and, MCE, of course, sets its own rates. This board sets MCE's rates. But in this scenario, the thinking is, well, what if MCE decided to reduce its rates, for example, to offset an increase in PCIA? Would it still make sense to do this expansion? And the answer is yes. Even if MCE reduced its rates by about 0.5 cents per kilowatt hour, that there would still be positive fiscal benefits from the expansion. Go to the next one, please. Okay, so that's the fiscal benefit. And then the next sort of test is, what would be the impact on use of renewable energy? So in the first full year for these customers, MCE would be supplying 256,000 megawatt hours of renewable energy per year. That's under just the light green service option. So that's the gross amount of renewables. In terms of the increase in renewables, we would compare that to the renewable portfolio standard minimum, and that would be an increase in use of renewables in the state by 86,000 megawatt hours per year. And then the next slide relates to greenhouse gases. In here, with MCE as a very low carbon intensive portfolio, moving to essentially 100% service by renewables and other low carbon sources. So MCE would be providing about 240,000 megawatt hours of incremental carbon-free energy per year to the city, and that would have an impact of reducing annual CO2 equivalent emissions of about 100 metric tons annually. So we go to the next one. So this is a summary, and so in summary, the results of the applicant analysis for the inclusion of the city of Fairfield are positive. All three of these tests are passed, so to speak. There would be expected fiscal benefits. I'll get a range here, but I'd say averaging about $5 million per year, about 86,000 megawatt hours per year of extra renewable energy delivered in California, and up to 100 metric tons of annual greenhouse gas emissions reductions.
Great, thank you, John. Questions for John and Leanne from board members? No.
Director Kuhnhart?
Presumably, our procurement staff has every bit of confidence and no doubts that it can find sufficient renewable energy contracts to meet this increased demand.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. This is about an 8% increase in the overall requirements. And so, I don't think that the procurement, the power resources team has any concerns about sourcing that renewable energy.
Other questions or comments?
I see no other hands.
All right, thank you, Darlene. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to comment on this item? All right.
So move to approve the staff recommendation.
Great. Thank you, Elizabeth. Is there a second?
Second.
Sue wants to second, I think. Yeah. Sue
Sue.
Higgins, second. Yeah. Thank you, Sue. You're thinking of this as your last act, yeah? Okay.
Belvedere,
Yes.
Benicia,
Yes.
Concord,
Yes.
Contra Costa County, Corte Madera,
Yes.
Danville,
Yes.
El Cerrito,
Yes.
Fairfax,
Yes.
Lafayette,
Yes.
Larkspur,
Yes.
County of Marin,
Yes.
Martinez, Moraga, Napa,
Yes.
Novato,
Yes.
Oakley,
Yes.
Pinole,
Yes.
Pittsburgh,
Yes.
Pleasant Hill,
Yes.
Richmond,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
San Anselmo,
Yes.
San Pablo,
Yes.
San Rafael,
Yes.
San Ramon,
Yes.
Sausalito and Mill Valley,
Yes.
County of Solano, Tiburon,
Yes.
Vallejo,
Yes.
Walnut Creek. Unanimous roll call.
Great. Thank you, Darlene. And thank you, everyone, for hanging in. We're making progress. We have one more sort of substantive item before we start having a little bit of fun.
Kate, can I? This is
yes,
Kevin. Can I
Kevin.
just say I think this is great. This is a continued expansion of our business model in a broader jurisdiction, and I'm excited to see this happen. So
Great. Thank you, Kevin. All righty. Great. Super. Okay, let's move on to the item number 10, which is policy 16 regarding our operating reserve fund. And Garth, I'm assuming you're going to take the lead here.
I am.
Great.
Thank you very much, and good evening, members of the board. So I'm Garth Salisbury. I'm the Director of Finance and Treasurer for MCE, and want to talk to you tonight about a policy that the board has asked that we present and have adopted regarding our operating reserve fund. So back in just about a year ago, the board approved the creation of an operating reserve fund, which by some other names is sometimes known as a rate stabilization fund. And then in June of this year, the board approved a deferral of $10.5 million of revenue from the last fiscal year into this fund. So at the time we did that in June, the board asked staff to develop a policy addressing when revenues would be deferred into and withdrawn from this operating reserve fund. So I believe in your packet was a draft of a operating reserve fund policy, and it describes the reasons for the creation of this fund. It also describes a situation when our fiscal results might warrant putting more money into the fund, and also those when fiscal results are such that we would want to potentially take money out of this fund. So all deposits into the fund and withdrawals from the fund must be approved by the board of directors. So just to take a quick minute about this operating reserve fund. So the operating reserve fund is not a traditional cash reserve fund where, you know, if our revenues are a little bit low one year, or if we have extraordinary expenses relating to energy cost, that we would withdraw from this fund. So we already have cash reserves, and those cash reserves are as directed by our reserve policy. So we have certain goals to reach a certain amount of reserves and liquidity in those policies, but this reserve is different from just those standard reserves. And importantly, what it allows us to do is it allows us to defer revenue, a defined term of revenue, into a future fiscal year. Now we have the cash from that revenue, and we have that as well, but in addition, from an accounting standpoint, we can defer the actual revenue to be used in a future year when we might need it. You know, when might we need that? So it's very likely that MCE will go down a path to issue our own debt, for example. And if we do that, we will likely have covenants that require that we produce, for example, a certain amount of net revenue or net profit each year. If we end up in a skinny year where we don't have much profit, or heaven forbid, no profit, we could draw on this fund to put us over the top and allow us to meet that covenant, because we would again defer revenue into that year. So it's a really valuable tool to have, and for MCE to have. It's important for the rating agencies, and they've said as much once we establish this fund. So again, we'd like to propose here that MCE the board consider and adopt a policy around, again, when we put money in the fund and when we withdraw money. So what we're suggesting here is that the board will consider deferral of a revenue into a fund in the fiscal year when the projected addition to our net position or our net profit in that year is greater than 5% of our total operating and non-operating revenue. So kind of a skinny year, but a pretty good year. In other words, we would have to be making more than 5% in net revenues before we would consider putting money into the fund. The policy also addresses a target amount for the fund, and that's a moving target based upon the year in which we're in. And so we've established that the deposits can be made into the fund until the balance equals 10% of our total operating and non-operating revenues in that fiscal year. So, for example, in the current fiscal year, that would be about $45 million. That would sort of be what we would suggest as the limit in that fund, or a cap for that. And that, again, is dynamic. It moves with our amount of revenues in each year. And withdrawals. So you would recommend withdrawals from the fund when our net revenues are projected to be negative, or as necessary to satisfy any legal covenant, contractual obligation, or to maintain our investment grade ratings. So again, the policy was in your packet. It's a very short, sweet, and direct policy. The executive committee reviewed this and voted unanimously for the board to adopt this policy. And so that's what we'd like to present tonight. Recommendation that the board approve policy 016 regarding the operating reserve fund.
Great, thank you,
Director Lyman.
Yeah, I've got two quick questions. One is with regards to deposits. You did talk about it being 5% of total operating, but there's a or, and there's a second clause in there, or once the reserve policy targets are met from any excess net revenue. So if it could be significantly less than 5%, it could be a fairly large number, is the way I'm interpreting that, if we've met our reserve targets.
Yes, Director Lyman, that is true. But again, if we've met our reserve targets, which are 60% of our total operating revenue, this is just our cash, if you will, and then our liquidity targets, which is 240 days of operating expenses. Once we've met those, then we could do lots of things, including maybe not have our rates as high. We don't have to continue to generate additional cash. So, but while we're still trying to meet those reserve targets, we would say, listen, if we're not making at least 5% net, then we won't recommend any additions to the operating reserve fund. However, once we've met those reserve targets, we could meet actually making less than 5% and still say, hey, we could put money in the operating reserve fund because we've already met our other reserve targets. So that's really sort of gives us a little bit of flexibility going forward. And again, as you say, again, we have a targeted size there. So we would probably not, continue to put more and more money in that because we would certainly be well above, if we, for example, had 20% of our operating revenues in there, that would, probably be too much. So,
and that does lead to my second question. It says the balance is equal to 10% of a current fiscal year value. If, for example, the current fiscal year value drops precipitously and it's now significantly more than 10%, are we forced to take money out of it? Or because that you say that's the target, but what happens if the annual amount goes down and now the operating reserve fund is bigger than 10% of the current fiscal year amount? Are we forced to take money out, or is it still an option?
It's still an option. Again, it's just deposits can be made into the fund until it reaches that level. So if, for example, as you say, in a situation where our revenues dropped and the amount was larger, that's fine. We're not forced to take money out. And again, it's always up to the board to do, and staff would come and say, hey, we've got, we probably have too much money here. We can take the revenues this year. So, I mean, we have complete flexibility to do whatever, we might want to do in the future. There's nothing that forces us to keep it at a certain level.
Thank you.
Amy, did you have your hand raised? Okay. Director Meissner?
Thank you. I like this. Sounds like a great policy. I'm familiar with GASB through nonprofit work, and so I don't know about this Rule 62, but well, this was FASB, and this was quite a while ago. We were we were not allowed to defer revenue anymore. We actually had to claim it in the fiscal year that we earned it. This is for nonprofits, and so where we used to defer revenue into another year for like maybe a grant that was going to pay for something that was done in a future year. So in the future year, we would show losses, it wasn't really a loss, it would be in our fund reserve. And so would we actually show a loss, or could we actually count the revenue as actual revenue in the year we want to claim it?
Yeah, that's yeah. Under the GASB 62, that's exactly what you're able to do. So, for example, Director Meissner, what happened last year was we had a very fulsome year in terms of net revenue, and we produced something like about $80 million. And then the board, it was actually the board decision to defer $10.5 million. So the revenue that we recognized and did show for last fiscal year was about $70 million. So we reduced our revenue in that year. Those revenues went into this operating reserve fund, and then we can recognize that revenue under GASB in a future year. And and again, if we're not producing any net revenue, if we're making no profit, but we have a covenant that says we can withdraw from that fund to meet that covenant.
And then just one other question. So it says, where does it say? It said it can be used, it can be created in 1 year and then used for future years. So we could hold it into perpetuity if we didn't need it.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Director Withy, I feel like you need to make a comment on this item.
Yeah, well, I was going to wait to comment time if this is appropriate. Okay. I'm happy to. I think the important thing to understand here is that, first of all, we created this operating reserve fund. That's checkbox number one. Checkbox number two is we have some basic overarching policies for how we put money in and take money out. Great. That's what we're doing tonight. The important thing is, and Garth, you can correct me if I'm misstating this, is that any deposit into or withdraw out of is based on future board decisions. The board has to make a decision to be able to do either one of those transactions. Put money in, take money out. I think that's right, Garth.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So, so the way to view this, I think, is as a tool. This is an important tool. It creates flexibility. My God, when I was managing a publicly traded company, I wish I could have grabbed revenues, deferred it. I've been able to do it in a future year. You can't do that in the private sector, the nonprofit sector. But GASB 62 allows you to do that. And this is something that utilities do frequently, as I understand it.
Right.
So this is an important thing for as much overall, stabilization. And the point is that, and I know sort of we joked earlier when I said we're growing up, but the maturing of the organization, the maturity of the organization is in part reflected in its financial maturity, of which this is a component part. And so by having this flexibility, therefore reduces risk in the eyes of, for instance, those who are assessing credit ratings. And therefore, we are therefore also ultimately considering our play is going to be debt, issuing debt to be able to scale up for the procurement of, in particular, sort of battery storage related projects in the infrastructure in driving that marketplace, this gives us enormous flexibility, which means our debt level, our debt servicing levels will be lower because we've added this sort of flexibility, which will mean that the credit agencies and the lenders will feel more comfortable that we're sort of maturing as an organization. Is that a fair statement, Garth? Is that sort of why part of the flexibility we're building in here through this tool?
Yes, absolutely, it is. And might I say, I am going to miss you terribly, Director Withy.
Who said he's not going to be back as a member of the public, making sure that you're saying things correctly, Garth?
Yeah. So this is an important maturing step, and really what Garth and the team is doing is checking the boxes so we're going to be able to have a lower cost and efficient debt issuance when we go for it early next year, basically.
Thank you, Ray. Really well done.
I note that this operating reserve in the write-up is not to be used for operating expenses and shortfalls. Garth, are you planning on pledging this to lenders?
No, that's not really the intent at all. I mean, I guess the notion is that we have other cash reserves for that. So again, this is, as Director Withy put it, is really about meeting covenants if we needed to in the future. And so, no, there's no intent to pledge this, but certainly to necessarily to use it if we needed to meet a covenant. That's really its highest and best use.
Other comments from directors? Do we have anyone from the public who wants to comment? No. All right. So Ray, I feel like you should make a motion.
I will. I am not 100% certain I have the motion language in front of me, but basically to adopt the policy that regulates the operational control of the operating reserve fund. I don't know if that's good enough or whether I need to read something.
No, I think that'll do it.
And Kate, if that's a sufficient motion, this is Kevin, I would be pleased to second it.
Excellent. Greg, did you want to say something?
Oh, I tried to second it, but Kevin got in there.
Well, you were too late. Sorry, Greg.
He was there. Actually, I was first, but you were more forceful. That's all.
Well, that's the way I am.
All right. We got a motion. We got a second, one way or the other. Darlene, do you want to do a roll call?
Belvedere,
Yes.
Venetia,
You know, I'm going to say yes, but I do also have to say in honor of Jerry Brown, if he had done this in 1978, this would have saved us a lot of grief.
There you go.
Concord,
Yes.
Contra Costa County, Corte Madera,
Yes.
Danville,
Yes.
El Cerrito,
Yes.
Fairfax,
Yes.
Lafayette,
Yes.
Larkspur,
Yes.
County of Marin,
Yes.
Martinez, Moraga, Napa County,
Yes.
Novato,
Yes.
Oakley,
Yes.
Pinot,
Yes.
Pittsburgh,
Yes.
Pleasant Hill,
Yes.
Richmond,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
San Anselmo,
Yes.
San Pablo,
Yes.
San Rafael,
Yes.
San Ramon,
Yes.
Sausalito and Mill Valley,
Yes.
County of Solano, Tiburon,
Yes.
Vallejo,
Yes.
Walnut Creek. Unanimous roll call.
Great. Thank you, Darlene. All right. It's now time for us to turn our attention to the topic of transitions. And the first way we're going to do that is the board elections for chair and vice chair. And Dawn, I don't know if you wanted to launch this conversation or how you wanted to address this.
Yes, I'm happy to launch this conversation, although
right.
it's a bittersweet conversation. And I think we all will have a lot to say in the item after this, but just to tee this up, after many years of service, our chair is going to be departing from her seat on the County of Marin Board of Supervisors, and as a result, will be needing to step down as chair of MCE. And so as sad and hard as that is, we are fortunate because Director Tom Butt has been serving as vice chair for quite a while now, many years, and has been with us since Richmond joined MCE back in 2013, and is willing to step into that chair role, which is fantastic given the experience that he has with MCE. So he has expressed a willingness. It's up to the board to make a decision about that. There may be others that want to throw their name in the ring here. If he does move into that role, that would vacate our vice chair role. And fortunately, we have someone who's a little newer to the board, but brings a lot of skills and a great set of, well, a great community that she represents. And she's expressed an interest in serving in the vice chair role, and that's Director Chanel Scales-Preston, who has been part of the Pittsburgh Power Authority now for many years, and actually presented to our TechCom about that a couple of months ago. Bringing that energy expertise to our board is really a great opportunity, and having a more prominent voice from the city of Pittsburgh also is another amazing opportunity. So she's put her name forward, and I would like to suggest that if we were to make a motion for a new chair and vice chair, that motion contemplate the new roles become official on January 1, so that our existing chair can serve out the rest of her year in the current role, if that pleases the board. So with that, I'll turn it over to you all for next steps.
Board, did you want to say something?
Who?
No.
Ford?
I thought you wanted to say something, Ford. Well, I personally think
no.
this is a great slate, but yeah.
I do. I think it's a great slate. I think it's a good idea. The continuity, having Tom move into the chair's position makes a lot of sense. And with the different aspects of Chanel's professional capacities, that enriches our leadership too. So I think they're both good ideas.
Super. Thank you. Other comments? I know this can be a competitive group. There may be others that want to throw their hat into the ring. The comments by anybody? No.
So Kate, this is Kevin. I
Yeah.
just want to endorse all of that. I think these are the appropriate directions for our organization to go forward with, and I'm grateful for both your years of service and the opportunity to be a part of this organization with you during that time. And I really look forward to working with Tom and Chanel in their new capacities.
Director Kohler.
I just really want to say how much I support these changes. Sorry to see you go, Kate, but we'll bring that up later. But I think Director Butt has been fabulous as vice chair and chair of the executive committee. And I think Chanel will be just a great addition. And it also brings, we have such a large customer base in the East Bay. So I think it's time to see more diversity from areas in the East Bay. Marin's taken the lead for so long, but I think they're both just super, and I'm supportive.
Great. Thank you, Barbara. Any other comments? Great. Super. All right. Excellent. Wonderful slate. Somebody make a motion.
I would like to make a motion to approve both Tom and Chanel to be placed in the position of
I'll
the
second.
chair. Well, I didn't finish. Chair and vice chair of our organization. This is terrific. This is a great step.
I still
But
second.
first,
You're still going to second, Eddie?
Yeah.
and public comment.
Is there any public comment?
January 1, is that correct?
Hmm?
Effective January 1.
Effective January 1. Yeah, you're not rid of me quite yet. Was there anyone from the public who wanted to comment? All right, seeing none. Darlene.
Belvedere,
Yes.
Nisha,
Yes.
Concord,
Yes.
Contra Costa County, Corte Madera,
Yes, with enthusiasm.
Danville,
Yes.
El Cerrito,
Definitely yes.
Fairfax,
Yes.
Lafayette,
Yes.
Larkspur,
Yes.
County of Marin,
You bet.
Martinez, Moraga, Napa,
Yes.
Novato,
Yes.
Oakley,
Yes.
Pinole,
Yes.
Pittsburgh,
Yes.
Pleasant Hill,
Yes.
Richmond,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
San Anselmo,
Yes.
San Pablo,
Yes.
San Rafael,
Yes.
San Ramon,
Yes.
Sausalito, and Mill Valley,
Yes.
County of Solano, Tiburon,
Yes.
Vallejo,
Yes.
Walnut Creek. Unanimous roll call vote.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tom and Chanel. It's a great leadership team. All righty. So now is our time to really recognize and acknowledge a significant group of directors who are coming off. And I believe there were 9 of us, but Sue Higgins is now telling us that she's coming off as well and being replaced. So we have 10 directors who are coming off, and that's what you call a transition. So Dawn, do you want to talk about some of these folks, or how do you best want to deal with address this?
I do, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that, or to go first. I think there are a number of folks that want to make comments. And of course, when we have our holiday event in December, we can make more comments. So it's not the last time we'll all be together. But I just wanted to start off with a few words about all of our departing members, kind of one at a time, just to acknowledge the different contributions that folks have made. And of course, I have to start with our chair, Kate Sears, who's with the County of Marin, obviously, was sworn in on September 1st, 2011. And this was following the sudden death of our founding board chair, Charles McGlashan, and a temporary period where Damon Connolly was our chair. Kate was appointed to Charles's seat, and was really an unknown quantity for many of us. And we wondered, what she would be like, what she might want to do with MCE, what she might think of all of us. And I just have to say, it's been such an amazing fit, and such a blessing, really, to have you join and provide such amazing leadership for our agency through so many changes. The launch was one thing, but from 2011 till 2020, a lot has happened to MCE. We have gone through so much change, so much growth. We've launched many programs and initiatives, and all under your steady hand and support. And so I just, I want to thank you for your service. I want to acknowledge that in addition to serving as chair, you also served as the chair of what you consider to be the best committee, the technical committee, starting in April 2013 through till now, where a lot of important work happens. And also served on the executive committee from January 2012 until the present. And just the last thing I want to say about working with you is just I've found that you dig into the details. You seem to be on top of everything. You're always supportive and unflappable. There's a lot of concerning things can happen on a month-to-month basis, and you don't seem to be fazed by any of it. You know when to use humor and when to be firm, and you've led MCE with integrity, professionalism, and grace. So big thanks to you, Director Sears.
So yeah, so Dawn, thank you so much, and I will talk more once we have our virtual cocktail party. But for those of you who are newer to the board, it's hard to really imagine how small MCE was when I joined in 2011. And I'm glad that you sort of went back to those days, Dawn, because there very much was that sense. I got the sense that the staff were sort of like, well, who the hell are you? And because it was such a small, close-knit group that had been very attached to my predecessor, the founder, Charles McGlashan. And that was not easy for the group to have this unknown person come in. And I must say, over these years, I have learned so much. I wasn't so sure about MCE either. When I became a county supervisor, I thought I'm going to focus on transportation. And then as I got into really being on the board at MCE, I realized that this is really where my primary interest is. And so fascinating what has happened with MCE, with the energy field. It's just remarkable, absolutely remarkable what this agency has done in the little over 9 years that I've been on the board. And it really gets back to Director Withy's comments about growing up. As much as I laughed about it at the time, it's really exactly what has happened. The growing up of this entity, of this agency, and the maturation of the staff, and the expansion, and the development of the board. You look at all of us now. This is a fantastic group of people from 4 different counties around the Bay Area. We never imagined this when I came on in 2011 at all. And it's just been a terrific trajectory to be on. It's really exciting. And I know that you're going to continue and go forth and really continue to be at the forefront of innovation and what's happening in energy in the state of California. And I must say, I got a little surprised today. On my doorstep was this amazing item from MCE. I don't know if you can see it, but it's really cool, and it weighs a tremendous amount, I gotta say. So I'm gonna kind of, once I retire, this is my exercise thing, but really thoughtful. And I'm gonna miss you all tremendously, but I'm so proud of everybody, and just very excited about what you're going to accomplish going forward. So thank you. And I'll talk more.
Dawn, can I, this is Kevin, can I throw in just for a moment?
Yeah.
I just want to say how much I appreciate the leadership that Kate has shown to this organization. She and I have overlapped now for many years. We had a little dispute about which one of us was longer on the board, and I think she won. But her leadership and grace and consideration for all of us on the board and for staff is something that is remarkable and will be missed. So
thank you, Kevin. Thank you.
I'd just like to add a few words. Kate, I consider you to be a generalist. And the primary component of that is the ability to discern and separate the wheat from the chaff. And you do that with humor and patience, a lot of smarts that comes from being on the fraud squad of the AG's office. And the way that you treat people is really nice. You're responsive to all reports, and you have great endurance in dealing with these meetings. And I'm going to miss you personally quite a bit. So
thank you, Ford. Back at you. Yeah, great.
Can I just add something? I just want to say that it's been a pleasure working with you, Kate. I had the honor of working with you on another board as well, and got to know you through that. And I've just seen your tremendous leadership at MCE through all the growth. It's just been fabulous, and we will miss you.
Thank you, Barbara. Nice. All right. We should probably move on to all these other directors because I'm not a crier, but you guys could push me over the brink if you keep going.
Well, I do have some comments to make about the other folks that we're needing to say goodbye to. And so the next person I wanted to mention is Director Ray Withy with the City of Sausalito and also representing Mill Valley. Ray was sworn in on February 7th, 2013, and served diligently on MCE's technical committee from April 4th, 2013 until the present. He also served on multiple ad hoc committees, including the Expansion Committee. Some of you remember that one. The Audit Committee, several years, the Bonding Committee, and also the Rate Setting Committee. And we've benefited so much from his financial expertise and his eagle eye to all things operational. So big thanks to you, Director Withy, for your years of service. I also want to acknowledge Director Greg Wyman from the City of El Cerrito, who was sworn in on March 5th, 2015. So has been with us for a long time. Served on the MCE Technical Committee from January 2016 until the present. So many years running now. And then also served on multiple ad hoc committees, including the Bonding Committee, Contracts Committee, Rate Setting Committee. And one little known fact about Director Lyman is that he also helped a lot kind of behind the scenes, providing support and input into MCE's strategic plan activities several years ago. And that took a lot of time and a lot of effort. And Director Lyman is very well-mannered, as we saw when he was politely deferring to others, although he wanted to make motions and second motions tonight. But he's got so much experience and knowledge and know-how that when he speaks up in our committee meetings or at the board, we all learn a lot. So it's been really a pleasure having you on the board, Director Lyman. I want to also acknowledge Director Bob McCaskill with the City of Belvedere, who was sworn in on April 4th, 2013. So it's been a very long run. We've been so grateful to have Director McCaskill for all this time. He served on the executive committee since January 22nd, 2014 until the present. He served on multiple ad hoc committees, including the Audit Committee and Bonding Committee. He also assisted staff with HR and benefit decisions as a delegate from the executive committee, and provided a lot of great support there. And he was one of the key voices that helped push for and help us bring on our current Director of Finance. He saw that as a real need for MCE years ago, and after looking, quite a bit of looking, we found a great fit for that role. And so that is part of your legacy, Director McCaskill, and we've just benefited so much from your financial expertise and your engagement on budgetary issues. I wanted to acknowledge Director Mike Anderson from the City of Lafayette, who was sworn in on March 21st, 2019. And we haven't had you on the board long enough. I feel like we got a little bit cheated here because I know you have a lot of contributions to make, but while you were here, you added a lot. You served on the Ad Hoc Contracts Committee, and that was really valuable. And we're so grateful that we got you for the time that we did. And thank you for your time and service. I also wanted to acknowledge Director Blackwell from the town of Danville, who was sworn in on September 22nd, 2017. She served on the executive committee since September 2017, around that same time. And it's been great having Director Blackwell on the board. Elizabeth Patterson from the city of Benicia, sworn in on January 28th, 2019, and served on the executive committee starting in October 2019. We're really going to miss you and wish that we could have kept you on the board longer, but your contributions have been immense. And I know that you are really the driving force behind having the city of Benicia join MCE. So that is a legacy that will be living on here for many, many years. I wanted to acknowledge Director Andrew McCullough from the city of Santa Fe, who was sworn in on February 5th, 2015, and served on the board ever since. I'm really going to miss having you on the board representing Santa Fe. And Justin Waddell, city of Walnut Creek, sworn in on January 28th, 2019, was on our technical committee since April 2019, and we're really going to miss having you on that committee and on the board. It's shocking that we have so many folks that we're needing to say goodbye to. And Director Sue Higgins, adding you to the list today was a sad surprise. You've been with us now. I don't have the exact dates, but I know it's been at least a few years. I know you were the first appointed representative. From your jurisdiction. So we are really going to miss having you on the board, and really wish you all the best going forward, but I'm sorry that we're going to be losing you. So I'm sorry I've taken up so much time, but I just wanted to make sure and say a few words about all the many contributions. I know that Vicken, our COO, has a few comments, and then there may be other folks that want to make some comments, but Vicken, if you'd like to jump in next. Oh, and Director Butt.
Yeah, thank you very much, Don. Director Sears, I'm so honored to have a chance to have worked with you. You're an awesome visionary and a great believer in this amazing values that MCE holds. You can see through the thickest fog, no matter how much technical mumbo jumbo thing is thrown at you, you see right through it. And I really enjoyed some strategic or strategizing sessions that you and I have had in our offices. So I'm going to miss you and thank you so much for all your services. I want to go to Director Whitty. Director Whitty, what a financial bedrock you are for MCE and an excellent strategist on how to strengthen our existence. Really greatly appreciated our chats and your global vision for our future. I want to add a brief comment to Director Lyman. Director, you have amazing attention to financial and data details. And I really sincerely appreciated working with you on one ISO table regarding net energy metering and net load. That was really fun working with you. And lastly, just another comment to Director McCaskill. I always appreciated our candid discussions from financial to audit to HR, personnel, the whole 9 yards, piercing attention to audit details. And I gotta add, Director McCaskill, you're the easiest person to go to lunch with because all you need is a small yogurt. So I just want to say that thank you so much. I'm honored to have you all as our board. Thank you.
Great. And I see Director Butt wanted to make some comments. Yeah, please go ahead. And I think you're on mute.
How about that, huh?
There we go. We can
Yeah,
hear you now.
Tom,
there you go.
All right, thank you. Well, first I want to recognize Kate. You know, she set a great example of you know, how to be a great board chair. And you know, the things I appreciate about her, she's so detail oriented, and she brings some things that I need to learn from, and that's patience and diplomacy. So I've tried to borrow those. You know, she just set a great example, and I hope I can live up to her example. I'm not gonna go down one by one with the other 10 people, but I want to say some things that that I think kind of cover everything. One of them is that I feel like this organization is kind of being hollowed out. You know, we've had people come and go in the past, but like this is a wholesale desertion. I kind of have like survivor's guilt. You know, why am I still here? And all these other people are retiring and going off to do fun things. But the thing about this board is that I think that over the years we have gotten the best people from each city council and each board of supervisors. I got to believe. I mean, I know a lot of people on city councils and all, and the best people end up on this board. I don't know how it happens, but that's really true. And these board members you all are detail oriented, multidisciplinary. I mean, we've got lawyers, we've got people that are experts in finance, we've got people that are that understand highly technical issues, and everybody brings something to this. You know, there's nobody out there that's not carrying a load. And the other thing is, I'm going to miss all you guys. A lot of you I serve with on other organizations. The CCTA, or the Contra Costa Mayors Conference, ABAG, League of California Cities, Local Government Commission, Elizabeth, and I'm gonna miss you on all those other organizations. I hope the bodies you come from are smart enough to send as good of people to replace you as you've been. So, it's been a great pleasure working with this board. I'm sorry to see so many people leave, but I got to believe they're going to send good people in your place. So thank you for your service.
Yeah. I would like to just say something briefly, and not individually, but collectively. I am going to miss each and every one of you, because this has truly been an experience working with this group of departing members, because each of you brought such a different set of skills. And Kate, you are an amazing individual. No nonsense, which I love, getting right to the core of things. And for those of us who you're leaving behind, I just really want them to know that I did try and convince her that she really should not leave us, to at least give us a couple more years to, wrap our minds around this and to kind of get our act together. But she refused. And, you know, I begged, I tried begging. And when that didn't fail, I tried the other B word that lawyers don't like to hear. So none of that worked. So that said, I just want to wish you the very best in whatever it is that you are going to do next, even if it's nothing. And now, Greg, the heartburn begins, because now we have to onboard all of these new people. And that's going to be a chore, but it's going to, I will remember you guys for a very, very long time, each and every one of you. So thank you for your service, and thank you for all that you've done for MCE. And I know I've said it in my emails, you know, about your your sacrifices and what you've done, but we are very appreciative.
Thank you.
Best board I've ever served on.
Fabulous. We couldn't have done it without all the snacks.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry, you're going to miss out on round 2. So we'll get back to that.
Exactly.
Thank you guys so very much. I have really enjoyed you.
Thank you.
Did anyone else want to make a comment?
Yes, as the newbie, but I won't be a newbie pretty soon. But I just want to tell the party members, just appreciate serving with you all. I have learned a lot from you all during this 2 years that I've been on the board. And Kate, I'm just going to miss your voice. It's just so soothing and calm, and I agree with Tom. I just love your calm demeanor, but your take charge attitude, and you know, just really gonna miss all of you. And thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Chanel. Uh-oh. Barbara's coming around for round 2. We're in trouble now.
Director Kohler, go
I'll
ahead.
just make it quick. So I haven't had the pleasure of working directly with everyone who's leaving, and I'm very sorry to see people leave, but I want to say something about the few of the folks other than Kate that I've worked with directly. Andrew McCullough, it's just been a pleasure. He brings a lot of common sense. We used to sit next to each other, and I used to force him to eat my treats because I was trying to be on a diet all the time. But he always added common sense and good words. Greg Lyman has just blown me away with his brilliance of technical items as well as kind of overall operational things, and I really learned a lot. And I also know someone who served on the El Cerrito Council that's a friend of Greg's, so that's sort of a connection. Ray Withy is just such a sage advice, and really has helped really lead this organization. I think I've been on since 2013 or 2014, and just learned a lot from so many folks who've been on so long. And Bob McCaskill, who I really had the pleasure of working with on a lot of things about HR and finance, just really has brought so much. And I also want to mention something about Elizabeth Patterson, who I only met not that long ago when we were doing videos for MCE. But some of you may not know that Elizabeth Patterson at one time was the Fairfax Planning Director. And she's moved on to really learn and grow. And I'm glad that she's been on the board for a short time. But as Don says, I know she was behind Venetia getting on. So many of the rest of you I haven't had the pleasure of working with directly, but you guys have been advocates for MCE, and I want to say I sit on a lot of boards and committees, and this is truly my favorite. Thank you.
And I see Director Withy has his hand up. Did you want to make a comment, Ray?
Yeah, I just wanted to, obviously, one gets very embarrassed with all of the good wishes and praises and so on. And I thank you all very much. I wanted to add my thanks to Kate, our chairperson, who has steered this organization for a decade. It's important, really important work that you've done, Kate. And so thank you very much. And thank you for all the comments you've said about me, and everybody's said. This has honestly been the most fun that I've had in my role as a city council member. I am so thoroughly supportive and feel that this organization has excelled beyond my wildest dreams in every way. And it's thanks to everybody who participated. Thank you to the staff, just the most fundamentally great staff that exists in this strange structure of being a public agency, at the same time being a business enterprise in an incredibly difficult, complex marketplace. This is incredibly difficult stuff. And so let's first and foremost say what a great appreciation we have to the staff, to Dawn and her team, senior management team, and all the staff. You've created an organization that is just none other can surpass. It's just that simple. It's just that simple.
Absolutely.
And the board of directors, all of you and everybody, I'm going to miss you all. I really thank you for your collegiality, and in many cases, thank you for your friendship. You've been great. And this organization has done so much over the last, it's really helped the way such that it's transcended Marin. And it's now, during this time, we've also shown the leadership of actually creating other CCAs, forging Cal CCA, the lobbying group, now a JPA to control and take a large part in procurement, and all of the other things that we've done. It's an amazing growth, amazing growth. And when I said earlier, we're growing up, we're maturing as an enterprise, we're maturing and entering into a different era and a different phase. And it's wonderful to see. So thank you, all of you. Well, thank you, all of you, very much. This has been so much fun.
It's great, Ray. I think it underlining everything we have to celebrate just underlines the importance of our all getting together in December and having a virtual cocktail party so we can celebrate everything that's happened. Yeah.
I think Amy has had her hand up for a little while waiting. She wants to say something.
Thank you. I am an alternate and close to a sophomore council member. So I'm still learning all the acronyms. I didn't know who you were, but on behalf of Denise, who isn't with us, I know she would be, she loves this committee. So when, as a new council member, they start doling out the, boards, I'm not letting go of that one. She tells me, I love that one. I said, oh, okay, I'll be an alternate. I didn't really know who you were, what you were doing, but boy, did I fall head over heels. So I'm grateful to be here as a spectator and learning. And I am very honored that I got to work with all of you. And Kate, I can't wait to hear you on the radio. Oh, that's,
way to go, Kate.
That's my husband.
I'm glad I get to roast you in a couple of weeks too.
But I am so excited about this work, and like you, once I learned what MCE stood for, I can't tell you how many places intersect with this. And I even have a high school student who wants to be involved. So I'm honored by this board, the intellect, the contribution, the acceptance, and the grace with which you have conducted helps inform me as I become a leader in my own community. And I'm grateful for all of that. I watch you as you orchestrate this with the staff and everyone. So very honored to have had a small little piece of you as I enter this world of Novato City Council. And thank you.
All righty. I feel like we should call it quits for the evening. What do you think?
See you in December.
And see you in December. Plan your cocktails. We have a lot to celebrate. And
So Kate,
and-
it's Kevin. I did see a little tear coming out of your eye a little
oh,
earlier.
stop it, Kevin.
So,
No, quiet. Shh.
we appreciate all of you.
Yeah, I know it's hard. It's hard. Yeah. I'm such a tough former lawyer. Whew. Anyway, so thank
Doesn't
you,
accept
everybody.
bribes.
Yeah.
Well, snacks
Uh,
maybe, but you know.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for all the great work that you've done and will continue to do, and all the nice words that everyone has said about so many of us tonight. And we will reconvene and have a little fun and celebration and frivolity, and send off this year and look forward to next year. So I think we are
See you
adjourned
on the
for the evening.
17th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're adjourned.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good night.
Good evening.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night.